We're building an aluminum catamaran to withstand some of the toughest conditions the open ocean can dish out. And up until this point, we've been focusing on building a bomb-proof structure and installing some of the critical systems that will allow us to explore the high seas. But besides being a vehicle that will get us from point A to point B, this boat is going to be our home. We want it to be functional, comfy, and to represent our style. And because we're designing and building it from the ground up, that means that we have the freedom to create exactly what we want. But with this freedom comes a lot of considerations. And in this week's episode, we're going to take you along for the plotting and planning, the setbacks, and everything in between, as we show you what it's really like to design a floating home. Welcome to our home. This week we're gonna cover a few things, and one of the things is the interior. But just look at the boat, like it's gotten so far, and actually the welding will be mostly done in about 3 weeks, which is kind of wild. The interior is speeding along as well, and that's gonna be the majority of this video. I think it's so cool to walk around in the boat like this and just like envision our dreams, basically. I mean, we're designing this boat for us, which is really freaking cool, guys. It's like we get to choose what we want.
I think the cool thing about designing and building your own boat is I feel a lot of production boats have to be made so that they can appeal to the widest number of people so they can make a lot of sales.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, you're not really in the frame anymore.
Oh, geez. Makes 100% sense, but that's the whole reason why you build a custom boat, is so that you can build what makes sense to you.
Yeah, you can do your own decisions, right?
So that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Before we share our vision for the interior, there's something pretty cool that I want to tell you about. If you've been watching our channel for a while, you know that we're on the go quite often. In fact, we just flew from Sweden to the Indianapolis Boat Show in the US, and now to here in Australia. And the first thing that we always do whenever we land in a new destination is head to the shop and immediately buy a SIM card to get connected, which means waiting in line, filling out paperwork, and often they want to check our IDs as well. That is now a thing of the past, which is why I'm happy to say that the sponsor of today's video is Holofly, which will get you connected in over 200 destinations with an eSIM immediately. So here's how it works. Just download the Holofly app or visit the Holofly link in the description of this video. Once you're in there, you can select your destination, select your plan, and then follow the instructions to install the eSIM. Most new phones, and even my scruffy old iPhone 13, support eSIMs these days. All right, so remember, this is an electronic SIM card, so you don't have to run out to the store and buy it or any of that struggle, and it activates immediately. And the thing that really makes Holofly stand out is unlimited data. That's right, unlimited data. So say goodbye to international roaming fees and crazy hidden charges. It is super easy to get started. All you have to do is visit the link in the description below, or I will pop the QR code right here, and you will be connected immediately, and at the very same time, sending some love into our Delos 2.0 build fund. Okay, thank you for watching, and now back to you, Kaz.
Yes, my love. Oh, you need to say something? What do you need to say?
I've never seen this boat look like how this mess is.
Is it a mess?
We're working. When we work, we make a huge mess.
Yeah.
Kind of pretty too.
It's very pretty, huh?
Yeah, it's
The
like a pretty
metalwork
mess.
is beautiful.
Yeah. Our goal is to go from pretty mess to pretty home. But what would that actually look like for us? Well, here is our vision. Things that are important, functional, and maybe things having more than one purpose. I want this to feel like, I want to walk in here and just have like a light, open feeling. Because I think Delos sometimes, like, it's just beautiful, but you walk down and it's kind of dark in there, and I want it to be kind of have more lighter feeling to it, if that makes sense. It's a catamaran, everything has to be as lightweight as possible. So it's a constant challenge, and also like takes a lot of researching, talking to people. It's like, how can we make this boat as light as possible?
I'm gonna interrupt Kaz for a second here. You've probably heard us mentioning the importance of maintaining weight on board as much as we can, but I don't think we've actually stopped to explain why. When we sailed Delos, our monohull, weight was never much of a concern for us. The thing is, monohulls have more wetted surface area. That's the part of the hull that's underwater. On a monohull, we get stability from having a deep and heavy ballast under the surface that works like a lever arm to keep us upright. So as we add weight, we sink down a little bit more, the wetted surface and the underwater volume increases a bit, and we go a little bit slower from the increased resistance, but it's not very dramatic. The weight we add is proportionally quite small to the total design weight of the boat, but on a catamaran, it's different. Our stability comes from the width of the two holes, which kind of bob on the surface, meaning less wetted surface area overall. This means the boat floats higher in the water, and even a small increase in weight can cause it to sit lower, adding more wetted area and therefore more drag. And the difference in speed and comfort can be very dramatic, as the percentage of weight change is much larger. So why does that matter? Well, with a lighter catamaran, you get less resistance in the water, which means better speed and efficiency both under sail and power. Plus, a lighter boat that is well balanced weight-wise handles much better. It sits higher in the water with less pitching and rolling in rough seas and a shallower draft, meaning we can get into shallower areas without worrying about running aground. The bottom line? A catamaran has to be way more mindful of weight than a monohull, because even small changes can make a big difference in performance, speed, and comfort. It's all about minimizing drag and maximizing efficiency, and that's why we focus so heavily on weight savings with this build. So in designing every single detail of the boat, including the interior, as we're about to focus on in this video, we literally have a spreadsheet with weight estimates of every single item that will go on board, from huge things like our engines and sails to small things like our fridge and life jackets. All of this combined will help us to achieve 3 different weight targets. The lightship weight, which is literally just the structure of the boat itself, all the systems, sails, plumbing, electrical, the rigging, basically the boat totally bare bones before we put any people, their stuff, supplies, or fuel on board. Our target right there is around 15 metric tons, or 33,000 pounds. In comparison, this is a few thousand pounds lighter than Delos 1 already. Then we have our normal sailing weight, which includes all of the above, plus crew and personal effects, our dinghy, the fuel that goes with it, provisions, and half-full loads of fuel, water, and black water tanks. The target here is right around 16.5 metric tons, or 36,000 pounds. Lastly, we've got our full load, which is exactly what it sounds like. Full to the rim with fuel, extra water, provisions, all our toys like diving gear, kiteboarding gear, heaps of spare parts, and ready to go to sea for months of extended cruising in remote places, which takes our total weight target to just over 17.5 metric tons. So we don't have some magic formula that tells us, okay, your bathroom mirrors can't exceed X amount of kilos, but rather each decision becomes a balancing act of researching and deciding which is the best for the job, which is the lightest, which one do we like the best, and of course, cost. Multiply this by the thousands of decisions that need to be made for every single item on board, and it can quickly become a pretty dizzying process. But all we can do is take each decision as it comes. So let's regroup in Kaz's office and take you along while we talk flooring.
There's a lot of this stuff that is kind of going on, I guess, in this little cubicle of mine. I already started on this, and I know I touched on it a while back when I was looking at like my model. So we originally picked out quite a dark floor, and a lot of you wrote comments that you have a darker floor and how much dirt and kind of like stuff actually shows up. That it's super beautiful with a darker floor, But after reading those comments, me and Brian kind of started discussing, and we kind of came to the conclusion that we might want to change. So instead of having this kind of darker oak floor, we went with this specific one is like a, I don't know what they call it, luxury vinyl flooring. Luxury vinyl flooring was the clear choice for us from day one. And we never really considered some of the other alternatives like vinyl flooring or real hardwood. It's durable, scratch and dent resistant, waterproof, and it gives a look and aesthetics that is closer to real hardwood, but at a fraction of the weight and cost. The only thing we really needed to decide on, besides the thousands of different color options, was the thickness, since they do come in varying options. We went with the thinnest one to maximize on weight savings, and after endless debating on different shades, we found a winner that we're totally in love with. I feel happy and confident about that choice. It's always so interesting how you can be like super set on something and then you kind of is like start thinking about it in a different way and then you change your mind. And with that kind of came like this cascade of other things. So I need to choose the veneer. If you're like me and thought this when you heard the word veneer, you're not alone. Wood veneers are something else entirely, and there's actually a lot that goes into the production and use of it, which we'll go into more detail on later once we get to the actual construction of our interior. But the simple explanation is this. Basically, it's a super thin piece of wood that you use on top of another material to create a natural wood finish. In our case, we're going to be using a special type of foam with a veneer covering it, which will allow us to have the beautiful look of real wood, but at an incredible weight savings. We're going to use it in parts of the galley, the wardrobes and the cabinets in the cabins, and the jury is still out on whether or not we'll use it in the heads. So picking the veneer we'll use is a pretty big decision that we're going to set the style for the majority of the interior. And since it's not structured at all, the characteristics of the type of wood aren't too critical. We're mostly going for pure aesthetics, like choosing a paint color or wallpaper that you like. And I had a few veneers picked out to the old floor, but I realized when the new floor, I don't really feel like those colors work. So I've been looking at a few different ones. So this is a American maple. This is a white birch, and this is a hickory. And I've done a ton of research and it's been quite a journey, because it's also like a sample this big is very hard to kind of see a bigger picture. So to even narrow it down to these three was quite difficult. And she sent through a bunch of like batch pictures that show bigger pieces of these different woods basically. So I can get like a better idea of how they will look and as an actual big veneer. After doing that, the hickory went in the trash. It basically has come down to these two, white birch and American maple. Maple, not marple, maple. I'm also working on doing some color samples. So inside the kitchen, I'm actually not gonna have veneer, I'm gonna paint. So I've picked out a few samples of colors that I like, and I'm actually gonna do test paintings on some ply. I wanted to add a fun little pop of color to the galley. So instead of using veneers all the way around on the cabinets and the side of the counters, we're going to use a type of plywood on these interior sides here, which we'll paint. Once I did a test application of our two top contenders on a sample of the plywood, I was able to really put everything together to see how the color scheme would work with the floor, the veneer, and the countertop we were leaning towards so far. I don't know. Which one would you pick? I think my favorite is still the Explorer Blue, and Brian's favorite is the Breakwaters. I mean, they're so similar too. But I think they will both look great, whichever one we choose. So I haven't nailed it down yet, but it's getting closer for sure. The pieces were all starting to come together. And now we really wanted to try and nail down which veneer we wanted to go with. So we decided to make a field trip so we could see the options in person and get a better feel for how they would really look. Morning! We're on the highway today, super early. Yeah, Brian is doing a little
Dan challenged me
mustache action.
November to raise money for men's prostate cancer. So I accepted his challenge and this is what happened.
Yep. So this is what you're gonna have to live with for the next month. You look
I
great.
do not look great. You keep on laughing.
I know, every time I look over this morning when I was like okay, let's pick some veneers. See a lot of veneers. Oh. When we entered the warehouse, we were blown away by the quantity and variety of the veneers they had. I was already feeling a bit of decision overload just from looking at the sample book, but this was a whole new level.
How many square meters of veneer do you reckon you have in this warehouse here? Do you have any ideas?
It fluctuates. Yeah, we do have
Hundreds
an
of
idea.
thousands? Millions?
No, I think it's about 1.8 million.
In case you were wondering how much that actually is, here's a few different measurements that you can cover with 1.8 million square meters of veneer. About half the area of Central Park, 90% of the nation of Monaco, and 3 times the size of Disneyland. So needless to say, we know we have plenty of choice, but how are we supposed to narrow it down? Luckily, we brought our carpenter Steve along with us to help us find a winner.
So I know absolutely nothing about choosing veneers for cabinetry. Is there anything that we're looking for? Like one thing you mentioned is that, we need a certain amount of square meters. We said that was somewhere between 60 to 70.
70 square meters, yeah.
But we also need to find a similar looking species for like the frames around doors and things like that. So what does that mean?
Well, it means that we've got to find packs of timber that are of the same species, and hopefully, they're a good match to the veneers. Because they're all different trees, they're all a little bit different.
They brought out a bunch of different palettes to look at, and the veneers were all organized into packets that were cut from a single part of a tree. That meant that you can find different looks and grain patterns even within a specific type of wood. For example, packets cut from closer to the center of the tree had more distinctive patterns than one from the edges. As we sifted our way through the seemingly endless options, we started to really fall in love with the Australian white birch. And as it turns out, there's a pretty cool backstory to how they managed to get these trees. Australian white birch have become increasingly difficult to source, despite the fact that it's a fairly common type of tree. But Australia has strict laws that regulate what can and can't be cut, when and how. And suppliers around Australia always have an eye and ear open if the opportunity to harvest some happens to arise. In 2019, Australia was ravaged by some of the worst wildfires on record. And one of the techniques they use to try and contain the spread is by creating fire breaks. Basically, what they do is to completely clear and remove all the vegetation in an area around the fires to create a barrier, so there is less material that can burn. And one such area happened to have some Australian white birch in it.
And we just have people who know, about we need these type of wood.
Yeah.
We're searching for them, and they said, "Oh, look, geez, Anthony, we've got these few logs here. We really think, we should do something with them instead of them just having to get bulldozed down for this fire break to clear something up. Let's actually make something of it." So they kind of stopped, and we quickly went down, had a look at the logs, and we're
Snatched
able to,
them up.
Yeah,
That's a cool story.
And then they get used, instead
Yeah,
of
exactly.
Just,
And they're
just
beautiful,
pushed
so.
aside. Yeah, exactly.
Well done. I'm glad you did.
What do you think?
I like this.
over there.
I like this one the best so far. I like it as it is a little bit bolder.
Yeah.
Time to be brave, Kaz.
Well, we do have to find the solids, so.
Yeah.
What was that?
I'm sold.
You're sold? All right, that was easy. Next, on to the next 8,000 other decisions we have to make.
right. Totally. Yeah. Totally.
Your blood is gurgling.
My blood is gurgling? Oh my god, I don't know if that's a good thing. Am I so warm that my blood is boiling? I feel really hot right now.
Oh my god. Edit that out. Real healthy over here.
That's all I got. GoPro, turn off.